You were annoyed with me?
Where'd you get that idea?
Well, I'm sorry, Master, but I did not know that he was there.
If that little boy ever finds out that you're a genie, I am dead. Dead, you understand?
Tell me you love me.
This is important.
Do you not love me?
Oh, of course I love you.
When Dream of Jeannie first appeared on American television in September 1965, almost nobody at NBC expected it to become one of the most remembered sitcoms of its time. The series looked simple on the surface. A beautiful genie named Jeannie suddenly entered the life of astronaut Major Tony Nelson after he discovered her magical bottle on a deserted island. What followed was a mix of romance, confusion, and magical disasters that gave the show its light and playful charm. But behind the bright colors, smoke effects, and comedy was a production filled with pressure, censorship, hidden problems, and nervous network executives. Even before the show became a success, NBC already had doubts about it. The network refused to spend a few $100 extra per episode to shoot the first season in color, even though NBC was heavily promoting itself as the full-color network during the mid-1960s. Because of that decision, the first season aired completely in black and white. Ironically, that mistake later helped the show in unexpected ways. The darker picture hid many costume details and visual issues that might have caused even more trouble with television censors. At the center of all this attention was actress Barbara Eden, whose appearance quickly became one of the most talked about parts of the show. Her costume looked glamorous and magical, but network executives worried constantly about how much skin could appear on television in 1965. At that time, American television followed very strict standards. Even small details in clothing could create controversy. NBC executives feared complaints from viewers and advertisers, and that fear slowly turned one harmless costume into one of the most famous censorship stories in television history. The real controversy started during the first season when Barbara Eden's genie costume began attracting more public attention than the network expected. The outfit showed her stomach and included soft pink chiffon pants with decorative chains and jewelry. Today the costume may look harmless, but in 1965 it pushed television standards further than many executives felt comfortable with. Early episodes allowed quick glimpses of Barbara Eden's belly button during movement or certain camera angles, and at first NBC did not react strongly. According to Eden's later interviews and memoirs, the real problem began after a playful joke with a reporter visiting the set. During a break in filming, the reporter jokingly asked if he could see her belly button. Eden laughed and teased him about paying money for the privilege. The reporter later wrote about the exchange, turning the hidden belly button into a national talking point. Suddenly newspapers and entertainment magazines began discussing the costume everywhere. The public became strangely fascinated by something so small. Once NBC noticed the growing attention, the network finally stepped in and created an official rule banning Barbara Eden's belly button from appearing on camera. From that point forward, directors had to carefully frame scenes to avoid showing it. Costume designers added extra fabric and hidden linings to the outfit to prevent accidental exposure under bright studio lights. What made the situation even stranger was the fact that other NBC shows at the same time allowed actresses to wear far more revealing outfits. On comedy programs like Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, actresses appeared in bikinis and body paint without causing the same panic. Yet Barbara Eden's belly button became a special case. The rule stayed in place for the entire run of the series, and decades later it remains one of the most famous television censorship stories of the 1960s. While the audience focused on Jeannie's costume and magical adventures, Barbara Eden was secretly dealing with another major challenge behind the scenes. Around the same time NBC officially picked up the show for a full season, Eden discovered that she was pregnant with her first child. In modern television this might not sound unusual, but during the mid-1960s many studios believed a pregnant actress could not continue playing the lead role in a major television series. Hollywood executives worried that viewers would lose interest or that filming schedules would become too difficult. Eden feared the news might cost her the role she had worked so hard to get. Fortunately, producer Sidney Sheldon chose to protect her position instead of replacing her. The production team worked carefully to hide the pregnancy from viewers during the first season. Costume designers added extra layers of chiffon around her stomach while directors changed camera angles to avoid showing her body directly. Many scenes were filmed from the shoulders upward, and furniture or props were placed in front of her during conversations. Because the show was filmed in black and white during its first year, the disguise became even easier. Most viewers never noticed anything unusual. Eden later joked in interviews that she felt like the wardrobe department kept turning her into a walking tent as the pregnancy became harder to hide. Her son, Matthew Ansara, was born in October 1965, only weeks after the pilot episode aired on television. The audience watching at home had no idea that the smiling Jeannie appearing on screen was actually a pregnant actress trying to survive one of the biggest opportunities of her career. The hidden pregnancy became another example of how much effort went into maintaining the fantasy world of I Dream of Jeannie while real life continued behind the cameras. As the series grew more popular, another serious problem slowly developed on the set, and this time it involved leading actor Larry Hagman. Hagman played Major Tony Nelson, the astronaut who constantly found himself trapped between military responsibility and Jeannie's magical chaos. On screen he looked calm and controlled, but behind the scenes his personal struggles created tension throughout the production. Hagman later admitted in interviews and memoirs that he disliked working on the show almost from the beginning. He wanted to become a respected dramatic actor and feared being trapped forever inside a light fantasy sitcom. During those years he drank heavily and often behaved unpredictably on set. Stories from cast members and crew described arguments, emotional outbursts, and destructive behavior that made filming difficult. Barbara Eden later revealed that Hagman sometimes reacted badly to scripts he disliked. According to her memoir, he occasionally vomited on set furniture during angry moments, forcing production to stop while crew members cleaned everything. Other reports claimed he sometimes urinated on the set during arguments with producers. Years later Hagman himself admitted some of these stories were true and said he had changed after overcoming many of his addictions. His problems became worse because he mixed alcohol with prescription stimulants, tobacco, and eventually other drugs during the late 1960s. One of the most shocking incidents reportedly happened when a group of visiting nuns toured the studio lot near the Flying Nun set. Hagman allegedly grabbed a prop axe, shouted offensive language, and cut electrical cables on the soundstage after becoming irritated by noise. Production stopped completely, and visitors were later banned from the I Dream of Jeannie set. NBC executives seriously considered firing him during the second season, but Barbara Eden defended him and convinced the network not to replace him. That decision may have changed television history because years later Hagman became world famous as J.R. Ewing on Dallas. Even with all its success, I Dream of Jeannie constantly struggled against the limits of television censorship during the 1960s. The network closely controlled nearly every detail involving romance between Jeannie and Tony Nelson. The characters could not spend too much time together on a bed, even while fully dressed. Kisses needed approval, hugs had to remain short, and romantic scenes were carefully monitored by NBC standards officials. Producers often had to explain exactly why certain moments were necessary before filming could continue. These restrictions now seem strange because the entire premise of the show centered around Jeannie's devotion to her master, creating romantic tension from the very beginning. Yet television executives worried that audiences might find the relationship too suggestive. At the same time, the show carefully avoided mentioning real-world problems happening outside the studio. The series took place near Cape Kennedy during the height of the space race, and Tony Nelson worked as both an astronaut and military officer. However, the Vietnam War was never mentioned even once during all 139 episodes of the series. Producer Sidney Sheldon wanted the show to remain a fantasy escape far away from the stress and political tension of the real world. That decision helped keep the program light and timeless, but it also showed how carefully television networks managed public entertainment during that era. Eventually the writers faced another difficult problem. After years of romantic tension between Jeannie and Tony, audiences wanted the relationship to move forward. In 1969 the producers decided to marry the characters during the fifth season. Surprisingly, both Barbara Eden and Larry Hagman believed this was a terrible idea. Hagman warned producers that once the couple married, the series would lose the playful tension that made it exciting. Eden agreed, believing the fantasy magic would disappear once the relationship became normal. Despite their concerns, NBC pushed forward with the wedding storyline anyway. Ratings soon began falling, and by 1970 the network canceled the series after 5 seasons. After cancellation, the end of I Dream of Jeannie became almost as sad as some of the struggles that happened during production. In modern Hollywood, studios often preserve famous costumes, props, and sets for museums or future exhibits. But during the late 1960s, studios usually saw old television materials as worthless junk that simply cost money to store. After the show ended in 1970, most of the sets, furniture, costumes, and props from the series were destroyed. The famous bedroom set disappeared, the NASA control rooms were dismantled, and many original costumes were burned during studio disposal operations. Even most of the magical genie bottles were lost forever. Fortunately, Barbara Eden managed to save one original painted bottle before everything vanished. She kept it for decades and later displayed it at conventions, interviews, and fan events. Today it is likely the most valuable surviving object connected to the series. Even after the show ended, its popularity continued growing through reruns and syndication. New generations discover the magical sitcom year after year. Barbara Eden continued acting in films, television, and stage productions while Larry Hagman eventually reinvented himself as one of television's greatest villains on Dallas. Yet real life also brought heartbreak. Eden's son Matthew later struggled with addiction and tragically died from a heroin overdose in 2001 at only 35 years old. Hagman himself battled serious health problems caused by decades of heavy drinking before his death in 2012. Looking back now, the story of I Dream of Jeannie feels very different from the cheerful fantasy viewers saw on screen.